So, today we're diving into one of the most mysterious and influential texts ever written, the Tao Te Ching. But hold on, because this isn't the version you might find in a bookstore. Nope, we're talking about a rendering that tries to get back to the absolute basics to strip away literally thousands of years of interpretation and get to the raw, uncarved heart of the thing.
And that leads to a really interesting question, doesn't it? I mean, how do you even begin to hear a voice that's 2,300 years old? How do you connect with a way of thinking from so long ago and, cut through all the noise that's been layered on top over the centuries?
Well, according to this particular rendering, the answer is you listen to the bones. And by bones, they mean the absolute earliest texts we have. We're talking about ancient bamboo slips and silk scrolls from way back, around 300 BC. The whole idea is to get back to the original, physical imagery, the pictures behind the words, before they got all polished up and turned into abstract philosophy.
All right, so let's start with this idea of the uncarved text. We're going to dig into the core concepts that really make up the foundation of this whole way of thinking.
Okay, so at the very heart of this are two big ideas, two pillars that hold everything up. First, you've got what this rendering calls the flowing journey. That's the Tao. Think of it as the way the entire universe moves. Then you've got self-alignment, the Te, and that's all about how you, as a person, move in sync with that cosmic flow.
So yeah, let's really dig into these two concepts, journey and alignment. Because honestly, the way they interact, the way they dance together, that's the whole key to this thing.
All right, first up, the flowing journey, or Tao. The text makes it super clear that this thing is, well, it's slippery. It's like trying to point at a specific spot in a river. By the time you say, look, right there, the water you were pointing at is already downstream. What you're left with, what you can actually talk about, isn't the river itself. It's just the wake it leaves behind. It's always moving. You can't pin it down.
Okay, and that brings us to the other half, self-alignment or T. And what I find so cool about this definition is how physical it is. This isn't some lofty, abstract idea about being a good person. It's describing a physical condition. It's like your body's inner compass, your heart, is perfectly calibrated to what you see clearly, right in front of you. And when that happens, you just naturally move with that big flowing journey we were just talking about.
So that's the ideal. But what happens when we lose it? When we lose that connection, when our vision gets blurry and we just fall out of sync with the way things are supposed to move?
Well, the text lays out this downward spiral, and it's pretty brutal. It all starts when you lose touch with the journey. So what do? You try to compensate. You force yourself into alignment. You consciously try to do the right thing, but that feels hollow. So you try to find meaning in togetherness, in social rules and groups. When that doesn't work, you move on to sacrifice, trying to prove you're worthy. And the final stop? Empty ritual. You're just going through the motions, and the real living spirit of it is totally gone.
So if that whole descent is the problem, what's the solution? What's the how-to for staying in that flow? This rendering calls it something awesome, dancing without forcing. This is basically the famous idea of Wu Wei, and it's so important to get this right. It's not about being lazy or doing nothing, not at all. It's the art of acting effectively, but without all the struggle and resistance. Think about it. It's about moving with the current of a situation, not trying to swim against it. And the text has this incredible image to explain it. The softest thing beneath the sky gallops through the hardest. It's wild, right? Just think about water again, how it can wear down a solid rock over time. It doesn't smash it, it just yields. It flows. It finds the path of no resistance. Brute force needs something to hit, but softness, what is not, can find its way into any space.
And then there's the flip side, a really stark warning. It says that a person who lives by force, well, they won't die a peaceful death. And get this, it says to take that idea as the father of the teaching. That's not some gentle suggestion. That's about as fundamental as it gets. It's a choice, the way of water or the way of force.
And that's the perfect lead-in to the most important metaphor in the whole text, water. So let's dive into the way of water and see what it actually means for, real life. I mean, this is the great paradox of the whole philosophy right here. Yielding overcomes the hard. Soft overcomes the forceful. It says that everyone knows this. We see it all the time. But even though we all know it's true, nobody can actually do it. It's the simplest truth and the hardest practice.
So the ideal person in this text, the one who gets it, is usually called a sage,
But this rendering uses a really cool modern term, the investigative reporter. And just look at their qualities. It's this beautiful string of paradoxes. They know things without needing to go anywhere. They get things done without seeming to do anything. They guide without controlling. Their insight is sharp, but it doesn't hurt anyone. They're bright, but they don't blind you with their brilliance. It's incredible.
And this stuff isn't just personal philosophy. It has huge implications for things like leadership. The text compares two types of rulers. This translation calls them axe kings, probably from the original picture character for ruler. On one hand, you have the muffled, dull leader, someone who governs with a light touch. The result? Simple, honest people. On the other hand, you have the sharp, prying leader, the micromanager, the one who's always suspicious. And what do they create? A broken, cynical society.
Okay, this brings us to our last big idea, and it kind of wraps everything up perfectly. Hiding jade, wearing cloth. It's all about inner value versus what you show to the world. Man, what an image! Don't wish to ring like jade, clatter instead like common stones. Basically, stop trying to be so special and precious and noticeable. Instead, embrace being ordinary, like a handful of gravel. It's a total flip of how we usually think about what's valuable, right?
And here's the line that just ties it all together. The investigative reporter, that ideal person, wears coarse cloth and hides jade against the chest. You see, the real treasure, the jade, is on the inside. It's hidden. On the outside, they just look like anyone else. The point is that real worth doesn't need to be shown off. It doesn't need validation from anyone.
And in the end, that's what the flowing journey is all about. It's not some loud, dramatic thing. It doesn't have a big story attached to it. It's subtle. The text says the great sound is barely audible. It's like, have you ever heard a very, very faint sound so quiet you're not even sure if you're imagining it? That's the idea. It's that profound, but that quiet.
And that brings us full circle, right back to a question for you. If the great sound is barely audible, then in the quiet moments of your own life, when you tune out all the noise and all the stories, what is it that you hear?